Close your eyes now and let yourself drift. Drift toward the world's largest ocean, the Pacific Ocean. Just hearing its name brings a sense of vastness, doesn't it? Pacific, from the Latin pacificus, meaning peaceful. And tonight, we'll journey across this peaceful expanse together, discovering its wonders as you gently fall asleep. Imagine standing at the edge of the world, looking out across an endless blue horizon. Before you stretches more than 63 million square miles of water. To truly understand how immense this is, picture this. The Pacific Ocean is so vast that it covers more area than all of Earth's land combined. Every continent, every mountain range, every desert and forest, they would all fit within its boundaries, with room to spare. As you breathe in slowly and out, let yourself float above this great ocean. From up here, you can see how it touches the shores of 5 continents. To the east, the Americas. To the west, Asia and Australia. And if you look down toward the bottom of the world, you'll see it brushing against the icy edges of Antarctica. The Pacific is not just an ocean. It's a bridge between worlds, connecting more than half of humanity. Now, let yourself sink deeper into relaxation as we descend toward the water's surface. The Pacific isn't just wide, it's impossibly deep. In fact, if you were to take Mount Everest, that magnificent peak that reaches 29,032 feet into the sky, and place it into the deepest part of the Pacific Ocean, a place called the Mariana Trench, the mountain would disappear completely beneath the waves. There would still be more than a mile of water above its summit. The Mariana Trench plunges down nearly 7 miles to a depth of about 36,000 feet. 7 miles straight down into darkness and pressure and mystery. Breathe in the salt air now and relax even deeper. Let's drift back in time for a moment, floating through history, long before this ocean had a name, long before maps or ships or nations. The Pacific existed in timeless blue. But it wasn't until 1520 that a European explorer first crossed its vast expanse. Ferdinand Magellan, sailing west from South America, found the waters remarkably calm during his voyage, day after day of gentle seas. And so he named it Mar Pacifico, the peaceful sea. He had no idea, of course, that this ocean could also birth tremendous storms and towering waves. He simply experienced a moment of grace and gave the ocean a name that would last forever. As you settle more comfortably now, your breathing slow and steady, imagine the Pacific not as a single body of water, but as a living system, breathing with you. And it does breathe in a way. The ocean takes in enormous amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, absorbing roughly 25% of all the CO2 that humans release each year. It holds this gas in its waters, like the planet's own lungs, helping to regulate the very air we breathe. The Pacific, so vast and deep, plays a quiet but essential role in keeping our world in balance. And speaking of breath, of rhythm, of the gentle pulse of life, the Pacific Ocean contains more than half of all the water in all the world's oceans combined. Imagine that. When you think of the ocean, any ocean, chances are you're thinking of water that belongs to the Pacific. 50% of Earth's ocean water resides here, in this one great basin. It holds approximately 187 quintillion gallons. That's a number so large it becomes almost meaningless, like trying to count the stars. But perhaps it's enough to simply know this. The Pacific is not just an ocean. It is the ocean, holding the majority of all the salt water on our planet. Let yourself float now on these gentle swells, rocking slowly, peacefully. Feel the warmth of the tropical waters near the equator, where the Pacific cradles thousands upon thousands of islands. More than 25,000 islands are scattered across the Pacific, some large enough for nations, others barely more than a whisper of coral and sand. These islands form three great regions that ancient navigators learned to read like a map: Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia. The people who first settled these distant specks of land were some of the greatest voyagers in human history, navigating thousands of miles of open ocean using only the stars, the swells, and the flight patterns of birds. Your breathing is slower now, deeper, calmer, and as you drift towards sleep, consider one more wonder of this great ocean. The Pacific Ocean is ringed by fire, not literal flames, but a horseshoe-shaped zone of intense geological activity called the Ring of Fire. Around the Pacific's edges, where tectonic plates collide and grind and slide beneath one another, about 90% of the world's earthquakes occur here. 3/4 of all the planet's active volcanoes circle this ocean like sentinels. It's a reminder that even in peace, even in this vast tranquility, the Earth is dynamic, alive, constantly reshaping itself. The peaceful Pacific sits atop a restless planet, and somehow that makes its calm surface even more precious. Rest now. Let the vastness hold you. There is so much more to discover, but for now, just breathe with the ocean, in and out, as we continue our journey together. You're floating now, perfectly relaxed, suspended in the warm embrace of the Pacific waters. And as you drift, let's travel beneath the surface, down into the blue depths, where sunlight begins to fade. The Pacific Ocean has an average depth of around 13,000 feet. That's nearly 2.5 miles down. Imagine descending through layer after layer of darkening blue, each breath taking you deeper into tranquility, deeper into rest. In these depths, the Pacific holds secrets and wonders beyond imagination, and one of its most extraordinary features is hidden far below, where no light reaches. The ocean floor here isn't flat and featureless. No, it's carved with the longest mountain range on Earth. Beneath the Pacific's peaceful surface runs a vast underwater mountain system, part of the mid-ocean ridge that stretches for more than 40,000 miles across the world's ocean floors. These underwater mountains, formed by volcanic activity and the spreading of tectonic plates, are taller than any range on land, yet remain invisible to those of us above the waves. Mountains that have never felt sunlight, never known wind, existing only in the eternal dark of the deep. Breathe deeply now. Let yourself sink into comfort, and imagine the creatures that call this ocean home. The Pacific isn't just vast in space, it's vast in life. Scientists estimate that the ocean contains somewhere between 500,000 to 10 million different species, and the Pacific, with its enormous size and varied environments, hosts an incredible portion of Earth's marine biodiversity. From the tiniest plankton, drifting in clouds so thick they can be seen from space, to the largest animal that has ever existed on our planet. Yes, let that thought settle over you like a warm blanket. The largest animal ever. Not the largest living today, but the largest in all of Earth's history. The blue whale makes its home in the Pacific Ocean. These magnificent giants can grow to over 100 feet long and weigh as much as 200 tons, more massive than even the largest dinosaurs that ever walked the earth. And yet, despite their enormousness, they feed on some of the smallest creatures in the sea, filtering thousands of pounds of tiny krill through their baleen each day. There's something deeply peaceful about that, isn't there? The largest creature sustained by some of the smallest. Balance, harmony, the way of the ocean. Let your mind wander now, gently, softly, to the surface of the water. Watch the light dance and shimmer. The Pacific Ocean isn't just one uniform blue. It contains distinct regions, each with its own character, its own temperature, its own rhythm. And every few years, these regions shift in a phenomenon that affects weather patterns across the entire planet. You may have heard of El Niño and La Niña. These are patterns of warming and cooling in the tropical Pacific that can bring droughts to some regions and floods to others, halfway around the world. The Pacific doesn't just exist in isolation. It breathes weather into the atmosphere, influences rainfall thousands of miles away, connects distant lands through invisible threads of air and water. When the Pacific shifts its temperature by just a few degrees, the whole world feels it. Relax even deeper now, your body heavy and warm, as we travel westward across the ocean's surface. And here, in the Western Pacific, the water holds a special distinction. The warmest ocean water in the world pools here, in an area called the Western Pacific Warm Pool. These waters can reach temperatures of 86 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. Bath water warm, inviting, soothing. This warm pool acts like an engine for the Earth's climate, driving enormous weather systems, feeding typhoons with energy, and pumping moisture into the atmosphere that eventually falls as rain in distant jungles and forests. Feel yourself rocking gently on these warm swells, back and forth, and consider the very shape of the ocean itself. The Pacific Basin, as geologists call it, is slowly changing. It's not static, not permanent. In fact, the Pacific Ocean is shrinking, just a tiny bit each year, only a few centimeters. But over millions of years, this adds up. The tectonic plates that form the ocean floor are being pushed beneath the continental plates that surround the Pacific in a process called subduction. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, the Atlantic Ocean is growing wider. Tens of millions of years from now, the Pacific will be smaller than it is today, though still vast, still blue, still home to wonders we haven't yet imagined. And speaking of time, of the long, slow rhythms of the earth, let yourself drift back, far back, to the very origins of this ocean. The Pacific is ancient, the oldest of Earth's ocean basins, while the Atlantic is relatively young, formed as continents split apart. The Pacific has existed in some form for hundreds of millions of years. Some of its oceanic crust dates back more than 200 million years, to a time when dinosaurs were just beginning their reign on land. The Pacific has witnessed the rise and fall of countless species, the drift of continents, the birth of islands, and their eventual erosion back into the sea. It remembers everything, in its way, written in layers of sediment and stone. Your breathing is so slow now, so peaceful, in and out, like the tides themselves. And before we let you drift completely into sleep, imagine one more wonder. The Pacific Ocean generates the most powerful storms on Earth. Tropical cyclones called typhoons in the Western Pacific and hurricanes in the Eastern Pacific. These storms can span hundreds of miles, with winds exceeding 150 miles per hour. And yet, for all their fury, they begin as whispers, a slight warming of the water, a gathering of clouds, the gentlest rotation in the atmosphere, and then, fed by the ocean's heat and moisture, they grow into magnificent spirals of power and rain. The Pacific creates these storms and then absorbs their energy again when they dissipate, an endless cycle of creation and dissolution, intensity and calm. Rest now in this knowledge. You are floating on an ocean that is ancient and alive, powerful and peaceful, vast beyond measure, and yet connected to everything. Let the Pacific hold you as you drift deeper into sleep, deeper into dreams. The gentle sound of waves carrying you away. You're drifting now, floating in that space between waking and sleeping, where everything feels soft and distant. And in this peaceful state, let's explore the Pacific's most colorful secret, the coral reefs. The Pacific Ocean is home to more coral reefs than any other ocean on Earth. These underwater gardens, built grain by grain over thousands of years by tiny coral polyps, create entire cities beneath the waves. The Great Barrier Reef, stretching along Australia's northeastern coast, is the largest living structure on the planet, so vast it can be seen from space. Over 1,400 miles long, built by billions upon billions of tiny creatures, each no bigger than a fingernail, working together across millennia to create something magnificent. Breathe in slowly and out and imagine the colors. The corals come in shades you've never seen on land. Electric blues, sunset oranges, deep purples, bright yellows. And living among them, darting through the branches and caves, are thousands of species of fish, each one a brushstroke in an endless underwater painting. These reefs, though they cover less than 1% of the ocean floor, provide homes for nearly a quarter of all marine species. So much life concentrated in such small spaces, like cities in the sea. Let yourself sink deeper into relaxation now, as we journey to the very bottom of the Pacific. Down here, in the crushing darkness and cold, hot water suddenly bursts from cracks in the ocean floor. These are hydrothermal vents, discovered only in 1977, places where superheated water, sometimes reaching temperatures of 750 degrees Fahrenheit, pours out of the Earth's crust into the freezing deep. Scientists once thought nothing could live in such extreme conditions, in complete darkness, under immense pressure, surrounded by toxic chemicals. But they were wonderfully wrong. Around these vents thrive entire ecosystems of creatures found nowhere else. Giant tube worms, taller than a person, eyeless shrimp, strange fish, all living off the energy from the Earth's interior rather than sunlight. Life, it turns out, finds a way in even the most unlikely places. Rest now, perfectly still, perfectly calm, and let's rise back toward the light, toward the surface where the sun warms the water. Here in the Pacific, something miraculous happens twice each day. The tides rise and fall, pulled by the gravitational embrace of the moon, and to a lesser extent, the sun. The Pacific experiences some of the most dramatic tidal ranges on Earth. In certain locations, like the Bay of Fundy, which connects to the Pacific system, the difference between high tide and low tide can exceed 50 feet. Imagine the water level rising as high as a 4-story building, then retreating again, twice daily, in an eternal rhythm that has continued for billions of years. The moon pulls at the ocean, and the ocean responds, breathing in and out with the pull of distant celestial bodies. Your own breathing matches this rhythm now, in and out, slow and steady, as we travel across the surface toward the heart of the Pacific. And here, in the middle of this vast ocean, far from any land, you'll find something unexpected. In the North Pacific, there's a region called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Though patch makes it sound smaller than it really is, this is an area roughly twice the size of Texas, where ocean currents have concentrated floating plastic debris, tiny fragments of broken down plastic, suspended in the water, drifting in slow circles. It's a reminder that the Pacific, for all its vastness, is not immune to human activity. But it's also a reminder of why we must protect these waters, preserve them, honor them. The ocean has given us so much, it deserves our care in return. Soften now. Let any tension dissolve, and imagine traveling back in time once more. The Pacific has been a highway for humanity for thousands of years. The Polynesian people, among the greatest navigators in history, settled the Pacific Islands using only outrigger canoes. No maps, no compasses, no GPS. They navigated by reading the stars, understanding the swells and wave patterns, watching birds and clouds, memorizing the subtle signatures of islands they'd never seen. They sailed thousands of miles across open ocean, from Hawaii to New Zealand to Easter Island, creating a vast network of settlements across what's called the Polynesian Triangle. This triangle covers an area of ocean larger than Russia, the world's biggest country, and they crossed it in wooden canoes, guided by knowledge passed down through generations. Let this inspire a sense of wonder as you drift. Humans have always been connected to the Pacific, drawn to it, shaped by it, and the ocean continues to provide. The Pacific Ocean produces more fish than any other ocean. It accounts for over half of the world's annual fish catch. From the cold, nutrient-rich waters near Alaska, where salmon run each year, to the tropical waters where tuna swim in great schools, to the anchovy-filled currents of South America, the Pacific feeds hundreds of millions of people. Fishing communities along its shores have depended on its bounty for thousands of years, casting nets and lines, learning the migrations and seasons, living in harmony with the ocean's rhythms. And speaking of rhythms, of patterns, of the way the ocean moves, the Pacific is home to the longest waves on Earth. Not the tallest waves, those come during storms, but the longest, the ones that travel the farthest. Waves generated by storms in the Southern Ocean can travel thousands of miles across the Pacific, carrying energy from one side of the ocean to the other. Surfers in California ride swells that began their journey near Antarctica. Waves that have traveled for days, crossing the equator, rolling beneath ships and over seamounts, finally cresting and breaking on a distant shore. Each wave is a traveler, a message sent across the sea. Your mind is quiet now, peaceful, ready for sleep. Feel yourself rocking gently on these endless swells, back and forth, carried by waves that know no boundaries. The Pacific holds you, ancient and patient, vast and gentle. Let the ocean sing you to sleep with the sound of distant waves, steady and eternal. As we continue our journey through the blue, you're so relaxed now, floating in that dreamy space where thoughts become images, and images become feelings. Let's drift together to the cold northern reaches of the Pacific, where the water touches the edge of the Arctic. Here, in the Bering Sea, between Alaska and Russia, something remarkable happens each year. The Pacific salmon complete one of nature's most incredible journeys. These fish are born in freshwater streams, swim out to the ocean, where they spend years feeding and growing, then return to the exact stream where they were born, sometimes traveling over 2,000 miles, to spawn and complete their life cycle. They navigate using the Earth's magnetic field, the angle of the sun, and even the chemical signature of their home waters. And when they arrive, having not eaten for weeks, their bodies transform, changing color and shape, giving everything they have to create the next generation. It's a journey of perfect instinct, written into their being by millions of years of evolution. Breathe slowly with me now, in and out, as we travel westward across the ocean's surface. And here, scattered across the western Pacific, you'll find some of the deepest ocean trenches on Earth. We've spoken of the Mariana Trench, but it's not alone. The Tonga Trench plunges down more than 35,000 feet. The Philippine Trench reaches depths of 34,000 feet. These trenches are formed where one tectonic plate dives beneath another, creating wounds in the ocean floor that go down, down, down into darkness. In 2019, an explorer descended to the bottom of the Mariana Trench and found something both wonderful and sad. New species of sea creatures, never before seen, and also a plastic bag and candy wrappers. Even the deepest place on Earth is not beyond human reach. Let any worry dissolve now. Just rest, and imagine something more hopeful. The Pacific Ocean produces more oxygen than all the rainforests on Earth combined. How? Through phytoplankton, microscopic plant-like organisms that drift near the surface by the trillions. These tiny beings, invisible to the naked eye, photosynthesize just like trees and grass, taking in carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen. Scientists estimate that phytoplankton produce about 50 to 80% of the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere. Every other breath you take, in and out, comes from the ocean. You're breathing the Pacific right now, even as it helps you fall asleep. Soften even more, sink deeper, and travel with me to the tropical Pacific, to a phenomenon that seems almost magical, bioluminescence. In many parts of the Pacific, especially in warm waters, tiny organisms called dinoflagellates light up when disturbed, creating a glow in the water like liquid starlight. When waves crash on the beach at night, they sparkle blue-green. When dolphins swim through these waters, they leave trails of light behind them. Even the wake of a boat glows with ethereal fire. This is nature's own light show, powered not by electricity, but by chemical reactions within living cells. The Pacific, in certain places and seasons, becomes a sea of stars. Your body is so heavy now, so comfortable, sinking into perfect rest. And beneath you, the Pacific floor tells stories, written in stone and sediment. The ocean basin is marked by thousands of seamounts, underwater mountains that don't quite reach the surface. Scientists estimate there are more than 10,000 seamounts in the Pacific Ocean, perhaps many more still undiscovered. Some seamounts are ancient volcanoes, long extinct, their peaks worn smooth by ages of current and time. Others still rumble with volcanic activity, building themselves taller, grain by grain, aspiring perhaps to one day break the surface and become islands. Drift now, let go completely, and consider the sound of the ocean. The Pacific is not silent. Beneath the waves, it's filled with noise, the clicks and whistles of dolphins communicating, the haunting songs of humpback whales that can travel hundreds of miles through the water, the snapping of pistol shrimp, the grunts of fish, the groaning of shifting ice in polar regions. And the whales, their songs are especially remarkable. Male humpback whales sing complex songs that can last up to 20 minutes, repeating the same patterns over and over. All the males in a region sing the same song, and the song changes gradually from year to year, evolving like music, like poetry, passed between generations of singers. The Pacific echoes with these songs, a symphony we're only beginning to understand. Let the whale song lull you now, deep and resonant, as we explore one more wonder. The Pacific Ocean influences global climate through a massive system of currents that act like a conveyor belt, moving water around the world. Warm water flows from the tropics toward the poles, while cold water sinks and flows back toward the equator. The Kuroshio Current off Japan is one of the strongest ocean currents in the world, carrying warm water northward at speeds of up to 3 miles per hour. The California Current brings cold water south along North America's west coast. These currents don't just move water. They carry heat. They influence weather. They transport nutrients. They shape the climate of entire continents. A change in these currents can mean drought or rain thousands of miles away. And finally, As you settle into the deepest relaxation, consider this. The Pacific Ocean contains approximately 20,000 to 30,000 tons of gold dissolved in its waters. It's spread so thin, so diffused throughout the immense volume, that it would be impossible to extract profitably. But it's there nonetheless. Millions of years of gold eroding from rocks on land, washing into rivers, flowing to the sea, dissolving into the great blue expanse. The Pacific is, quite literally, a treasure, not just in gold, but in life, in beauty, in the way it shapes our world and sustains us all. Rest now in these deep waters. Let the Pacific cradle you as sleep comes gently, inevitably, like the tide returning to shore. You are safe here. You are home. You're drifting now in the realm of dreams, where the boundary between ocean and sky dissolves, where everything is soft and blue and endless. Let's float together to one of the Pacific's most isolated places, Easter Island, known to its people as Rapa Nui. This tiny speck of land sits more than 2,000 miles from the nearest continent, making it one of the most remote inhabited islands on Earth. The nearest other inhabited land is over 1,200 miles away. Imagine the courage it took for ancient Polynesians to sail across such vast emptiness and settle here, carving those mysterious stone figures, the moai, that stare out across the endless ocean. They lived on a dot in the immensity, surrounded by nothing but Pacific blue in every direction. Breathe with the waves now, slow and deep, and let's descend beneath the surface to meet one of the ocean's most ancient residents. The Pacific is home to the Greenland shark, and though they live primarily in Arctic and North Atlantic waters, their relatives swim in the deep Pacific too. These remarkable creatures can live for over 400 years, the longest living vertebrates known to science. A shark alive today might have been born before the United States existed, swimming slowly through the dark depths, patient and timeless. They grow incredibly slowly, mature incredibly late, and move through the ocean like living history, witnessing centuries pass in the eternal cold and darkness. Let yourself sink deeper into comfort, deeper into peace, and consider the Pacific's role in shaping weather across the globe. The ocean's surface temperature doesn't just affect nearby coasts. It drives the jet stream, that river of air high in the atmosphere that steers weather systems across entire hemispheres. When the Pacific warms or cools, the jet stream shifts its path, bringing wet winters to some regions and dry ones to others. Farmers in Kansas, winemakers in France, and monsoon patterns in India, all influenced by the temperature of water thousands of miles away. The Pacific's breath becomes the world's weather. Soften now, release everything, and imagine a garden beneath the waves. Kelp forests grow along the Pacific's temperate coasts, creating underwater forests as complex and beautiful as any woodland on land. Giant kelp, the largest species, can grow up to 2 feet per day, among the fastest growing organisms on Earth. These golden brown forests sway with the currents, reaching from the sea floor toward the sunlit surface, sometimes growing over 100 feet tall. They provide shelter for thousands of species. Sea otters float on their backs among the fronds, fish dart through the understory, sea urchins graze at their bases. It's an entire ecosystem, a forest in the sea, dancing with each wave and tide. Your breathing is so peaceful now, matching the rhythm of the kelp swaying, in and out, as we travel to the warm heart of the Pacific. Here, in the tropics, lies the Coral Triangle, a region bounded by Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Papua New Guinea, the Solomon Islands, and Timor-Leste. Though it covers just 1.6% of the planet's ocean area, this region contains 76% of all known coral species and more than 3,000 species of fish. It's the Amazon rainforest of the sea, the epicenter of marine biodiversity. 6 different species of sea turtles nest here. Whales migrate through its waters. The density of life in this triangle is staggering. Every dive reveals creatures never seen before, colors that seem impossible, relationships between species that science is only beginning to understand. Rest deeper now. Let the colors and life surround you like a dream, and consider something vast and invisible. The Pacific Ocean absorbs sound in a peculiar way. Low-frequency sounds, like the calls of whales, can travel enormous distances through water. In fact, scientists discovered that whale songs recorded on one side of the Pacific could be detected thousands of miles away on the other side. The ocean acts as a sound channel, especially at certain depths where temperature and pressure create perfect conditions for sound to travel. Whales may be communicating across entire ocean basins, their voices carrying across distances that would take months to swim. The Pacific connects them, lets them speak to each other across the vastness. Feel yourself floating in this ocean of sound, of connection, and travel with me now to the surface during a special time. The Pacific experiences some of the most spectacular sunsets on Earth, but there's a scientific reason for this. The ocean's vast surface releases moisture into the atmosphere, creating clouds and humidity that scatter light in particular ways. When the sun sets over the Pacific, its light passes through more atmosphere, scattering the shorter wavelengths, blues and greens, and leaving the longer wavelengths, reds, oranges, and purples, to paint the sky. Add to this the clouds formed by ocean moisture, and you get layers upon layers of color. Sunsets that last for half an hour, skies that seem to burn with impossible beauty. The Pacific doesn't just reflect the sky, it creates it. Let this beauty wash over you, warm and gentle. As we explore one more wonder of the depths, the Pacific seafloor is covered with manganese nodules, potato-sized rocks rich in metals like manganese, nickel, copper, and cobalt. These nodules form incredibly slowly, growing outward from a central core over millions of years as minerals precipitate from seawater. They carpet vast areas of the deep ocean floor, particularly in an area called the Clarion-Clipperton Zone, a region between Hawaii and Mexico. Scientists estimate this zone alone contains more nickel, manganese, and cobalt than all known reserves on land. These ancient stones, formed in darkness over millennia, represent both a resource and a mystery. We're still learning how they form and what ecosystems depend on them. And finally, as sleep calls to you irresistibly, think of this. The Pacific is so large that it contains its own point of oceanic remoteness, called Point Nemo, or the Pole of Inaccessibility. This is the point in the ocean farthest from any land, over 1,600 miles from the nearest shore in any direction. If you were floating at Point Nemo, the closest humans to you would likely be astronauts aboard the International Space Station passing overhead. It's the loneliest place on Earth, the ultimate middle of nowhere, surrounded by nothing but ocean and sky. And yet, even there, ocean currents flow, phytoplankton bloom, creatures swim in the depths below. Even at Point Nemo, the Pacific is alive. Rest now in perfect solitude, perfect peace. Let the vastness hold you. The Pacific surrounds you, infinite and gentle, as you drift into the deepest sleep, waves rocking you softly, eternally, safe in the heart of the ocean. You're floating in the deepest calm now, suspended between sleep and the sea. And as you drift, Let's visit the Pacific's volcanic islands, born from fire beneath the waves. The Hawaiian Islands are perhaps the most famous example of volcanic island chains in the Pacific. But here's something remarkable. They're moving. The Pacific Plate, the tectonic plate beneath the ocean, is slowly drifting northwest at about 3 to 4 inches per year. Meanwhile, deep beneath the seafloor, a stationary hotspot of molten rock burns like an eternal flame. As the plate moves over this hotspot, new volcanoes form. The big island of Hawaii sits over the hotspot now, still growing, still active. But millions of years ago, Kauai sat in that same spot. The islands are like a conveyor belt of creation, each one born, then carried away, aging as it drifts toward the northwest, eventually to erode back into the sea. Breathe slowly, in and out, feeling the movement of time, the patience of stone, and let's descend to the twilight zone of the ocean, between 660 and 3,300 feet down, where sunlight fades to almost nothing, lies the mesopelagic zone. This dim realm is home to the largest migration on Earth, but not a migration across distance. Instead, every single night, billions upon billions of small fish, squid, and other creatures rise from these depths toward the surface to feed, then descend again before dawn. This vertical migration happens in oceans worldwide, but the Pacific, with its vast expanse, hosts the largest numbers. It's been called the greatest biomass migration on the planet, a daily journey repeated by countless creatures, moving through the water column like a living tide. Soften more, release any remaining tension, and imagine the Pacific's deep scattering layer. That's what scientists call this mass of creatures. It's so dense that early sonar operators thought they'd found the seafloor, because the mass of animals reflected sound waves so strongly. But the floor rose at night and sank during the day. It took years to realize they were detecting not rock, but life, an invisible layer of countless swimming, drifting, hunting creatures, all following the ancient rhythm of rise and fall, darkness and light. Let yourself drift with them now, rising, falling, and travel to the cold waters of the North Pacific. Here, grey whales complete one of the longest migrations of any mammal on Earth. Each year, these massive creatures swim from their feeding grounds in the Arctic waters near Alaska down to the warm lagoons of Baja California, Mexico, a journey of about 12,000 miles round trip. Mothers give birth in the protected lagoons, nursing their calves in the warm shallows before making the long journey back north. Some individuals make this epic voyage every year for 60, 70, even 80 years. Think of it, a lifetime of journeys, back and forth across the Pacific, following an instinct older than humanity itself. Rest deeply now. Let the whale's patience become your own, as we explore something luminous and strange. In the depths of the Pacific, swim creatures that create their own light through bioluminescence, but none quite so alien as the vampire squid. Despite its name, this small creature doesn't suck blood. It feeds on marine snow, the constant drift of organic particles falling from above. It lives at depths where oxygen is scarce, in the oxygen minimum zone, where most creatures cannot survive. Its body is covered with light-producing organs called photophores, and when threatened, it can produce a cloud of glowing mucus that confuses predators. Then it turns itself inside out, pulling its webbed arms over its body like a cloak, revealing spines, hence the vampire name. It's a creature of the deep Pacific, perfectly adapted to a world we're only beginning to understand. Breathe in the mystery. Breathe out into sleep. And consider the Pacific seamounts once more, but from a different angle. Many of these underwater mountains create their own weather in the ocean. When currents encounter a seamount, the water is forced upward, bringing cold, nutrient-rich water from the depths toward the surface. This process, called upwelling, creates oases of life in the open ocean. Around seamounts, you will find concentrations of fish, feeding seabirds above, sometimes even whales. The mountains we cannot see shape the distribution of life in ways we're still mapping, still discovering. Each seamount is an island of abundance in the blue desert of the open sea. Let this abundance surround you, warm and alive, as we travel to the Western Pacific, to a place of incredible depth and pressure. In the Mariana Trench, the pressure at the bottom is more than 1,000 times greater than at sea level, about 16,000 pounds per square inch. That's the equivalent of having 50 jumbo jets stacked on top of your thumb. And yet, life persists. Small crustaceans called amphipods scurry across the sediment. Strange fish with transparent heads drift in the darkness. Single-celled organisms called foraminifera, some as large as grapes, somehow withstand the crushing force. Life adapts, always. The Pacific's deepest places teach us that life is more resilient, more creative, more determined than we ever imagined. Sink deeper into comfort, into wonder, and rise with me now to the surface, where the Pacific meets the sky in another way. The ocean creates its own clouds. Phytoplankton, those microscopic organisms we spoke of earlier, release chemicals into the air as they photosynthesize. These chemicals seed cloud formation, creating the very clouds that float above the ocean. In a sense, the Pacific paints its own sky, creates its own weather, influences its own climate. It's a system talking to itself, ocean to atmosphere to ocean again, in a conversation that's been ongoing for millions of years. And here's something that brings us full circle, back to beginnings and ancient times. The Pacific Ocean floor contains some of the oldest water on Earth. In the deep ocean, certain masses of water move so slowly that they remain isolated from the surface for over 1,000 years. Water that sank into the depths before medieval castles were built in Europe is still down there, slowly circulating, eventually to rise again. The Pacific holds memories in its depths. Water that fell as rain when Vikings sailed, now drifting in darkness, patient and cold, carrying with it the dissolved minerals and history of ages past. Rest now, perfectly still, knowing that you float on an ocean that remembers everything, that connects all times, all places. Let the ancient waters hold you, as sleep becomes as deep as the deepest trench, peaceful as the calmest bay. You are held by the Pacific, safe, serene, drifting into dreams. You're so far into sleep now, so deep in dreams. But let's drift a little further together, exploring the Pacific's hidden wonders. In the warm waters of the South Pacific, there exists a sea creature that seems to defy death itself. The immortal jellyfish, Turritopsis dohrnii, has discovered a remarkable trick. When injured, stressed, or simply old, it can revert back to its juvenile polyp stage and begin its life cycle again. Imagine living your life, reaching old age, then transforming back into a child and starting over. This tiny jellyfish, no bigger than a pinky nail, potentially lives forever, cycling through life stages in an endless loop. The Pacific harbors this small miracle, floating through its waters, perpetually beginning again. Breathe with the eternal rhythm, in and out. And let's visit the Pacific's ring of islands in a different way. The ocean contains more than 25,000 islands, but here's something extraordinary. Many of them are atolls, ring-shaped coral reefs that encircle lagoons. These atolls form over millions of years as volcanic islands slowly sink back into the sea. The coral keeps growing upward toward the sunlight, maintaining its position at the surface even as the volcano beneath it subsides into the depths. Eventually, the volcanic peak disappears completely, leaving only a ring of coral, a living monument to an island that once was. The Pacific is dotted with these ghost islands, circles of reef marking where mountains used to stand. Let yourself sink with those ancient volcanoes. Down, down, and consider the Pacific's role in Earth's deep breath. The ocean doesn't just absorb carbon dioxide at the surface. It stores it in the deep for centuries. Cold water near the poles absorbs CO2, then sinks and flows along the ocean bottom toward the equator, carrying that carbon with it. This deep water can remain out of contact with the atmosphere for hundreds of years. The Pacific acts as one of Earth's largest carbon sinks, storing billions of tons of carbon in its depths, helping to regulate the planet's climate over timescales longer than human lifetimes. Soften completely now, every muscle relaxed, and travel to the edges of the Pacific where something magical occurs. In the waters of the Pacific Northwest, from Alaska down through British Columbia and Washington, lives the giant Pacific octopus, the largest octopus species in the world. These incredible creatures can grow to have an arm span of over 15 feet and weigh more than 100 pounds. But size isn't their only remarkable feature. They're among the most intelligent invertebrates on Earth, capable of solving complex puzzles, using tools, even recognizing individual human faces. They can change not just their color, but the texture of their skin in milliseconds, transforming from smooth to spiky, blending perfectly with rocks and kelp. Each octopus has 3 hearts and 9 brains, 1 central brain and a smaller brain in each of its 8 arms, allowing each arm to act semi-independently. They are alien intelligence, evolved in the Pacific's cold waters. Rest in this strangeness, this wonder, as we explore the Pacific's atmospheric reach. The ocean generates not just weather, but atmospheric rivers, long, narrow corridors of concentrated moisture in the atmosphere that transport enormous amounts of water vapor. When these atmospheric rivers make landfall along the Pacific coast, they can dump several inches of rain in just a day or two. A single atmospheric river can carry more water than the Mississippi River, except through the sky rather than through a channel. The Pacific sends these rivers of vapor across thousands of miles, ultimately determining whether California experiences drought or flood, whether crops flourish or wither. Drift on these rivers of mist, light as vapor, and descend once more to the ocean floor, where the Pacific holds another secret. The seafloor is constantly being created and destroyed in a cycle of renewal. At mid-ocean ridges, molten rock rises from Earth's mantle, creating new oceanic crust. This new crust slowly spreads outward, moving away from the ridge at a rate of inches per year. Eventually, it reaches the edges of the ocean basin, where it dives beneath continental plates in subduction zones, melting back into the mantle. The Pacific Ocean floor is constantly recycling itself. The crust beneath you right now will millions of years from now be consumed and reborn. Nothing in the ocean is permanent. Everything flows, changes, returns. Let this impermanence bring you peace. Everything changes, everything flows. and swim with me now to meet one of the Pacific's most graceful residents. Manta rays glide through tropical Pacific waters with wingspans that can exceed 20 feet. Despite their size, they feed on some of the ocean's smallest creatures, plankton and tiny fish, which they filter from the water using specialized feeding structures. But here's what makes them truly special. Manta rays appear to recognize themselves in mirrors, suggesting a level of self-awareness previously thought to exist only in great apes, elephants, and dolphins. They're social, curious, and individuals can be identified by the unique pattern of spots on their bellies, like fingerprints. They've been observed at cleaning stations on reefs, where smaller fish remove parasites from their skin, appointments they remember and return to regularly. Feel the grace of their movement, gliding, effortless, as we explore the Pacific's frozen edges. In the far North Pacific, where the ocean meets the Bering Sea, massive blooms of phytoplankton occur each spring, when sunlight returns and ice begins to melt. These blooms are so vast they can be seen from space, brilliant turquoise swirls stretching for hundreds of miles. They form the base of one of the most productive ecosystems on Earth. The plankton feed krill, which feed fish, which feed seals and seabirds, which feed orcas and polar bears. The entire Arctic food web depends on these spring blooms. This explosion of microscopic life that turns the Pacific's northern reaches into a garden every year. Breathe in this abundance, this interconnection, and consider one final marvel as you drift toward the deepest sleep. The Pacific Ocean has its own deserts, vast regions called ocean gyres, where water circulates slowly in enormous spirals, driven by wind and the Coriolis effect. The center of these gyres is remarkably still, and because nutrients from the deep don't reach the surface here, the water is crystal clear, but relatively lifeless. The North Pacific Gyre is one of the largest, spinning slowly over an area bigger than Texas. These are the ocean's quietest places, where water can take years to complete a single rotation, where the deep blue becomes almost transparent, where you can see down 200 feet or more into liquid clarity. And in this clarity, this stillness, let yourself finally surrender completely to sleep. The Pacific holds you in its great spiral. You are floating in the clear blue center. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. Just drifting, turning, held by the ocean's gentle rotation. Safe in the heart of stillness, as sleep embraces you, completely, peacefully, eternally. You're floating in the deepest peace now, barely aware of these words, just drifting on the edge of consciousness. And as you rest, let me tell you about the Pacific's ancient navigators, the sea turtles. These remarkable creatures have been swimming in the Pacific for over 100 million years. They shared the ocean with dinosaurs, survived the mass extinction that ended the Cretaceous period, and continue their journeys today. Female sea turtles return to the exact beach where they were born to lay their own eggs, sometimes traveling thousands of miles to reach that specific stretch of sand. They navigate using Earth's magnetic field, reading it like a map imprinted in their DNA. A turtle born on a beach in Japan might spend decades wandering the Pacific, but when it's time to nest, she'll find her way home across thousands of miles of open ocean. Breathe slowly, in and out, feeling the ancient wisdom of instinct, and descend with me to the Pacific's hydrothermal vents again, but to discover something new. Scientists have found that some bacteria living near these vents don't just survive the extreme conditions. They thrive in water that's acidic enough to dissolve metal. These extremophiles, as they're called, have evolved to live in what would be toxic environments for almost any other life form. They've taught us that life's boundaries are far wider than we imagined. And here's the profound part. Studying these creatures has changed how we think about life on other planets. If life can exist in the toxic, superheated waters of Pacific hydrothermal vents, perhaps it can exist in the subsurface oceans of Jupiter's moon Europa, or in the ancient seas that once covered Mars. Let this possibility expand your mind, even as your body rests completely, and travel now to the surface, where the Pacific experiences something that seems impossible. Rogue waves, also called freak waves, can appear suddenly in the open ocean, rising up to 80 or even 100 feet tall, twice as high as the surrounding waves. For centuries, sailors spoke of walls of water appearing out of nowhere, but scientists dismissed these stories as myths. Then, satellite imagery and instrumentation proved they were real. These waves form when multiple wave patterns intersect perfectly, their energies combining into a single massive swell that exists for just a few moments before dispersing again. The Pacific generates these monsters randomly, unpredictably, reminder that even in calm seas, the ocean holds sudden power. Soften deeper, knowing you are safe here, on gentle swells. And let's explore the Midnight Zone, the part of the ocean between 3,300 and 13,000 feet deep. Here, in permanent darkness, the pressure is immense, and the temperature hovers just above freezing. And yet, the Midnight Zone contains more fish than any other ocean layer. Most of these fish are small, rarely seen by humans, adapted perfectly to the darkness and pressure. Many have huge eyes to catch the faintest bioluminescent glow. Others have no eyes at all, navigating by sensing vibrations and chemical trails in the water. The Midnight Zone is the largest living space on Earth by volume, and the Pacific's Midnight Zone alone could contain the equivalent of several continents' worth of living space, a vast, dark realm teeming with strange and beautiful life. Rest in this darkness, peaceful and complete, as we rise toward the light again, toward the surface where the Pacific meets humanity in yet another way. The ocean is humanity's highway. About 90% of global trade travels by ship across the world's oceans, and the Pacific carries an enormous portion of this commerce. Container ships the size of small cities cross from Asia to the Americas and back again, following routes established over centuries. But long before these modern vessels, Chinese junks sailed to the Americas, Polynesian voyagers crisscrossed the Pacific, Spanish galleons carried silver from Mexico to Manila. The Pacific has always connected people, carried goods, facilitated the exchange of ideas and cultures. It's not a barrier, it's a bridge. Let the ship traffic fade now. Imagine the ocean returning to pristine emptiness. And consider the Pacific's smallest architects, coral polyps, tiny animals no bigger than a pencil eraser, build structures that can be thousands of miles long. Each polyp secretes calcium carbonate, creating a tiny skeleton. When the polyp dies, its skeleton remains and new polyps build on top of it. Generation after generation, over thousands of years, these tiny creatures construct reefs that provide habitat for countless other species. A single coral colony might be hundreds of years old, growing outward at a rate of less than an inch per year. The patience of coral is the patience of geological time. They build cathedrals one grain at a time, over centuries and millennia. Feel this patience flow through you all the time in the world, and swim now to meet one of the Pacific's most enigmatic visitors, the great white shark, apex predator of the ocean, undertakes a mysterious journey each year. Many great whites from the coast of California swim out to a remote area of the Pacific, roughly halfway to Hawaii, that researchers have nicknamed the White Shark Cafe. They spend months in this seemingly empty part of the ocean, diving deep repeatedly, and scientists are still trying to understand why. Some think they're feeding on deep-sea squid. Others believe it might be a mating area. The sharks keep their secrets, gathering in the middle of nowhere, then returning to the coast. The Pacific holds their purposes in silence. Drift with these ancient predators, purposeful yet mysterious, and rise to the surface one more time, where the Pacific experiences a phenomenon of light and beauty. Moonbows, rainbows created by moonlight instead of sunlight, occur in Pacific coastal areas where waterfalls or sea spray create fine mist in the air. They're much fainter than solar rainbows, often appearing almost white to the human eye, ghostly arcs against the night sky. But cameras with long exposures can capture their colors, pale blues and silvers and faint reds. The Pacific, even at night, even under moonlight, finds ways to create beauty, to bend light into wonder. Let this gentle light wash over you, soothing, silvery, and know this final thing as you drift into the deepest sleep. The Pacific Ocean is home to more UNESCO World Heritage Sites than any other ocean. From the Great Barrier Reef to the Rock Islands of Palau, from the Galapagos Islands to the remote atolls of Kiribati, the Pacific holds places of such extraordinary universal value that they've been designated as heritage, belonging to all humanity. These places remind us that the ocean isn't just a resource. It's a treasure, a wonder, something to be protected and cherished for all generations to come. And you, floating now in dreams, are part of this ocean story, part of its past and future, held by waters that have held everything. As you sleep, deeply, peacefully, completely, the Pacific surrounds you, eternal and gentle, carrying you through the night. You're barely listening anymore, so deep in sleep, but let these words wash over you, like gentle waves. The Pacific Ocean holds within it a graveyard of stars. Scientists estimate that about 200 spacecraft have been deliberately crashed into a remote area of the South Pacific, in a region so far from land that it's become the final resting place for satellites and space stations. When the Russian space station Mir was deorbited in 2001, it fell here. Pieces of over 180 other spacecraft rest on the ocean floor in this area, slowly being covered by sediment, becoming part of the geological record. The Pacific catches our fallen dreams of space and holds them in its depths, where the pressure of the ocean is greater than the vacuum of space they once knew. Breathe with the falling stars, sinking, settling, and let's drift to the warm shallows where something luminous dwells. The Pacific is home to the giant clam, the largest living bivalve mollusk in the world. These magnificent creatures can grow to over 4 feet across and weigh more than 500 pounds. They can live for over 100 years, anchored to one spot on a reef, filter feeding and housing symbiotic algae in their colorful mantles. These algae photosynthesize, providing the clam with nutrients, while the clam provides the algae with a safe home and access to sunlight. It's a partnership millions of years old, 2 organisms living as one. The clam's brilliant blues and greens and purples, created by billions of microscopic algae living in its tissue. Let yourself be still, like the giant clam, rooted, peaceful, drawing nourishment from light, and consider the Pacific's thermal memory. The ocean holds heat far longer than land or air. Water has a high heat capacity, meaning it takes enormous amounts of energy to warm or cool. The Pacific can store summer's warmth and release it slowly through winter, moderating the climate of nearby coasts. This is why coastal cities have milder temperatures than inland areas at the same latitude. The ocean remembers the seasons, holds onto them, and shares their warmth or coolness gradually, patiently, over months. The Pacific has thermal patience, a long memory written in temperature. Soften completely, every cell relaxed, and swim now with the sea otters of the Pacific coast. These charming creatures are one of the few mammals that use tools. They carry rocks with them, tucked into loose-skin pouches under their arms, and use these rocks to crack open shellfish while floating on their backs. But here's something especially touching. Sea otters hold hands while they sleep. They float on their backs at the surface, often in groups called rafts, and link paws with each other so they don't drift apart during the night. Mother otters wrap their pups in kelp to keep them anchored while they dive for food. The Pacific's sea otters have developed these tender behaviors, these small acts of connection and care, ensuring that their community stays together. Feel that connection, that gentle holding, as you float in your own dreams, and descend once more to the deep Pacific, where the pressure creates something unexpected. At extreme depths, water becomes denser, but it doesn't compress the way air does. The deep ocean is actually slightly denser than surface water, and this creates distinct layers that don't mix easily. These layers can trap water for centuries, as we've discussed, but they also trap sound. The SOFAR channel, Sound Fixing and Ranging Channel, is a horizontal layer in the ocean, usually around 2,000 to 4,000 feet deep, where sound waves can travel enormous distances with almost no loss of energy. A sound made in this channel near Australia could theoretically be heard in the channel near California. The Pacific contains invisible highways of sound, paths where acoustic energy can travel halfway around the world. Let sound carry you, vibrations through water, through dreams, and rise to meet one of the Pacific's most colorful residents. The mantis shrimp, found in tropical Pacific waters, has perhaps the most complex eyes in the animal kingdom. While humans have 3 types of color receptors in their eyes, mantis shrimp have 16. They can see colors we cannot even imagine: ultraviolet, infrared, and polarized light, all visible to them simultaneously. Their eyes can move independently, and they process visual information so quickly that they can see in slow motion compared to us. And they're fierce. Despite being only a few inches long, they can strike with their club-like front claws at speeds exceeding 50 miles per hour, with a force comparable to a bullet. The impact creates a cavitation bubble that produces light and heat. They are tiny warriors, living in a world of impossible colors. Rest in this riot of color, this fierce beauty, as we explore the Pacific's relationship with ice. During ice ages, when massive glaciers covered much of North America and Asia, sea levels dropped by over 300 feet. The Pacific Ocean shrank, its waters locked away in ice, and land bridges appeared where there is now only open ocean. The Bering Land Bridge connected Asia and North America, allowing humans and animals to migrate between continents. What is now the Bering Strait was once tundra, where mammoths walked and early humans hunted. The Pacific remembers these different shapes, these different shores, written in the submerged landscape of its continental shelves. Let the ancient ice melt. Let the waters rise again to their current peace, and consider something happening in the Pacific right now, even as you sleep. Microbes. The ocean contains approximately 1 million bacteria in every teaspoon of seawater. That means the Pacific contains more bacteria than there are stars in the known universe, by many orders of magnitude. These microscopic organisms form the foundation of the ocean's food web. They break down waste, recycle nutrients, produce oxygen, consume methane, fix nitrogen, and perform countless other chemical transformations that keep the ocean healthy. Without these invisible workers, the ocean would become lifeless. They are the Pacific's metabolism, its digestive system, its breath. Every process in the ocean ultimately depends on organisms too small to see. Feel yourself supported by this invisible web of life, held by countless small things working together. And know one more wonder as you drift deeper into sleep. The Pacific Ocean creates its own lightning. When underwater volcanic eruptions occur, the explosive interaction between molten lava and cold seawater creates plumes of ash and steam that rise thousands of feet into the air. Within these plumes, particles collide and create static electricity which discharges as lightning, volcanic lightning streaking through clouds of ash above the waves. The Pacific births mountains from its floor, and those mountains announce themselves with thunder and lightning, a primal display of creation that has occurred since the ocean first formed. And with that lightning, that thunder of creation, let yourself be created anew in sleep, formed and reformed by rest. The Pacific holds all transformations, all beginnings, all returns to peace. You're floating in the eternal now, held perfectly, completely, as sleep deepens, and deepens still, carried on dark water toward morning. You're in the deepest sleep now, these words barely reaching you, just the gentlest suggestions, drifting through your dreams like currents. And in these final moments, let me tell you about the Pacific's garden of glass. The ocean floor, in certain areas, is covered with glass sponges, delicate creatures that build their skeletons from silica, the same material as glass. Some of these sponge reefs off the coast of British Columbia are thousands of years old, creating fragile underwater structures that look like they were sculpted from spun glass. They were thought to be extinct for millions of years, until they were rediscovered in the Pacific in the 1980s. These living fossils filter enormous amounts of water through their bodies, cleaning the ocean one microscopic particle at a time, patiently, eternally, transparent and beautiful. Breathe. So slowly now, madam. Breathe. And know that the Pacific experiences something called the doldrums, a region near the equator where the trade winds converge and often cancel each other out, leaving the sea glassy and calm, sometimes for weeks at a time. Sailors in the age of sail dreaded this area, as their ships could be becalmed, sitting motionless on a mirror-smooth sea, supplies dwindling, waiting for a breath of wind. The Pacific holds this belt of stillness, this ring of quiet around its middle, where the ocean becomes so smooth it reflects the clouds perfectly, where it's hard to tell where water ends and sky begins. Let yourself be as still as the doldrums, mirror smooth, perfectly calm, and descend to where the Pacific holds one more secret. Methane hydrates, ice-like formations of methane trapped in water molecules, cover vast areas of the ocean floor. These strange substances exist only under the high pressure and low temperature of the deep sea. They look like ice, but burn if you light them, because they're made of frozen methane gas. The Pacific floor holds enormous reserves of these methane hydrates, more energy than all other fossil fuels combined, but they're also delicate. If ocean temperatures rise even slightly, they could melt and release methane into the atmosphere. The Pacific holds this frozen fire, this sleeping giant of potential energy and potential danger in its cold depths. Rest. Let everything rest as we visit the smallest of the Pacific's creatures. Diatoms, single-celled algae encased in intricate shells of silica, drift by the billions in Pacific waters. Under a microscope, they look like tiny jewels, their shells decorated with patterns of holes and ridges, geometric and beautiful. When diatoms die, their glass shells sink to the ocean floor, accumulating over millions of years into a substance called diatomaceous earth. The white cliffs you might see on some Pacific shores, the fine powder used in filters and toothpaste. These are made from billions upon billions of ancient diatom shells. The Pacific's smallest organisms build monuments that last for geological ages. Soften into this deep time, this patient accumulation, and rise to meet the Pacific's most playful inhabitants. Dolphins, spinner dolphins, spotted dolphins, bottlenose dolphins fill Pacific waters with clicks, whistles, and leaps. But spinner dolphins are especially remarkable. They leap from the water and spin up to 7 times in a single jump, rotating like corkscrews before splashing back down. Scientists still debate why they do this. Is it communication? Play? Removing parasites? Perhaps all 3. What's certain is that spinner dolphins seem to find joy in it, spinning for the simple pleasure of spinning, the Pacific's acrobats performing for an audience of waves and sky. Let yourself spin gently in dreams, turning, weightless, and know that the Pacific experiences something called internal waves, waves that travel not on the surface, but within the ocean, at the boundary between layers of water with different densities. These internal waves can be hundreds of feet tall, moving through the ocean's interior, completely invisible from the surface. Submarines have encountered them, feeling sudden strong currents in what seemed like calm water. The Pacific has weather beneath its surface, storms and waves in the depths that we never see, an entire dimension of movement hidden below the blue. Drift with these invisible waves, moving through layers, and travel to the cold waters where something ancient still swims. The Pacific sleeper shark, a close relative of the Greenland shark, lives in the deep, cold waters of the North Pacific. These massive sharks, which can grow to over 20 feet long, move slowly through the darkness, hunting fish and squid. Like their Greenland cousins, they likely live for centuries, growing slowly, aging slowly, patient predators of the deep. Their flesh contains a compound that makes it toxic to eat unless prepared carefully, as if the ocean itself is protecting these ancient ones from being consumed. Let the slow wisdom of these ancient sharks sink into your rest, and consider one more wonder of connection. The Pacific Ocean connects to every other ocean on Earth. Water from the Pacific flows into the Indian Ocean, the Arctic Ocean, and eventually into the Atlantic. Ocean currents form a global conveyor belt, moving water from one basin to another over the course of 1,000 years or more. A water molecule that falls as rain in the Pacific might, centuries later, evaporate in the Atlantic and fall as snow in Antarctica. The Pacific is not isolated. It's part of one great world ocean, and everything is connected. Everything flows into everything else. Feel this connection, this unity, knowing that separation is an illusion. All waters are one water, and rest in one final truth. The Pacific Ocean is always changing, and yet always the same. Its surface rises and falls with the tides. Its currents shift with the seasons. Its temperatures vary with the years. Islands erode and new ones are born. Species evolve and migrate and adapt. And yet the Pacific remains, vast, blue, eternal. It was here before we were born, before our great-grandparents were born, before humans walked the earth. And it will be here long after we're gone, rolling on, breathing with the moon, catching the light of stars that haven't been born yet. And you, floating in this eternal ocean, are also changing, and also remaining, sleeping and renewing, held by water that has held everything, as you rest completely, deeply, peacefully. The Pacific surrounds you, infinite and gentle, and you are safe. You are home. You are asleep, drifting, drifting, drifting away. You are so deeply asleep now, so far into dreams. But these final whispers will follow you there, drift with you. The Pacific Ocean experiences something miraculous twice each day during certain tides, tidal bores, waves that travel upstream in rivers, pushed by the incoming tide. Some Pacific rivers experience bores several feet high that surfers can ride for miles, a wave that moves inland, defying the river's natural flow. The ocean reaches into the land, sends its power upstream, touching places miles from the coast. The Pacific refuses to be contained by shorelines. Let this power flow gently through your dreams, and know that the Pacific is home to the world's largest structure built by living organisms. Not just the Great Barrier Reef, but the entire reef system that stretches across the Pacific is, collectively, the largest biological construction on Earth. Bigger than the Great Wall of China, bigger than any city, these reefs represent trillions of tiny polyps working across millions of years. The Pacific is patient in its creativity. Breathe, barely, and consider the luminescent wake of ships crossing the Pacific at night. Disturbed phytoplankton light up in the ship's path, creating a glowing trail that can stretch for miles behind the vessel. Sailors see rivers of light following them through the darkness. The Pacific shows its approval of our passage with ribbons of living light. Drift, and know that coconuts float, the coconut palms spread across Pacific islands, because coconuts can survive months drifting in salt water, washing ashore on distant beaches where they sprout and grow. The Pacific planted its own gardens, sending seeds on currents, creating palm-lined shores across thousands of islands. The ocean is a gardener. Soften and meet the chambered nautilus, a living fossil that has survived unchanged for over 500 million years. Its spiral shell follows a perfect mathematical pattern, the golden ratio, growing in chambers as the animal matures. The Pacific has preserved this perfect geometry for longer than there have been trees on Earth. Rest and know that the Pacific is shrinking at the same rate your fingernails grow, about 2 to 3 inches per year. By the time a child born today reaches old age, the Pacific will be several feet narrower. The ocean breathes in geological time, on a scale that makes human lifetimes seem like single heartbeats. Let go, and understand that the deepest point in the Pacific, in the Mariana Trench, is called Challenger Deep, and only 4 people have ever been there. More people have walked on the moon than have visited the deepest part of our own ocean. The Pacific keeps its deepest secrets closely. Float, and learn that moon jellyfish in the Pacific can regenerate from injury so completely that they can regrow an entire body from a small fragment. Cut one into pieces, and each piece may become a new jellyfish. The Pacific holds the secret of renewal. Sink, and know that the Pacific creates its own islands of pumice, floating rocks ejected from underwater volcanoes that drift together in vast rafts, sometimes miles across, eventually washing ashore or sinking as they become waterlogged. temporary islands of stone, drifting with the currents. And finally, as you rest in the deepest peace, know that the Pacific Ocean covers 1/3 of the entire Earth's surface. Look at a globe, spin it until you see the most blue. That's the Pacific view, a view of our planet that is almost entirely ocean. From this angle, Earth is a water world, and the Pacific is its heart. And now you've journeyed across the entire Pacific, from its volcanic birth to its deepest trenches, from its smallest diatoms to its largest whales, from its ancient past to its eternal present. You have floated on its surface, descended to its depths, and learned its secrets. The Pacific holds you now in perfect rest, in complete peace. You are safe in its vastness, cradled by waters that have cradled all of life. And as you sleep, as you dream, the ocean continues its eternal rhythms, tides rising and falling, currents flowing, waves rolling toward distant shores. Sleep now, deeply, peacefully, knowing that the Pacific will be here when you wake. Vast and blue and endless, always here, always holding, always home. Rest well, drift softly, and let the ocean carry you through the night. Good night.